So what are the different types of free responses that you'll find on the AP US Government and Politics exam? So right now what I'm doing is I'm looking at the AP US Government Politics course and exam description. So if you go to page 173, you'll find the same information there. This is the second section of the AP US Government and Politics exam. The first was a multiple choice portion, and then you're going to have 4 free response questions. And there's 4 different types of free response questions that I'm going to go over. The first free response question is a concept application. And in this situation, it presents students with an authentic scenario. This question assesses students' ability to describe and explain the effects of a political institution, behavior, or process. Additionally, this question assesses student ability to transfer, understand that course concepts and apply them in a new situation or scenario. That's free response question number 2. Free response question number 2 now is a quantitative analysis. In a quantitative analysis, it's more in the form of a table, graph, map, or infographic. As you look at that, you're going to want to think, what does this say? The question assesses the student's ability to perform the following: describing the data presented, describing a pattern, trend, similarity, or difference in the data presented, draw a conclusion based on the data, explain how that data demonstrates a political principle, institution, process, policy, or behavior. The third free response question is a SCOTUS comparison, and once again, SCOTUS connects to Supreme Court cases. For the required Supreme Court cases, and there are 14 that we talked about, the big 14 in another YouTube video, if you want to know what those big 14 are, students should know the facts, the issues, the holdings, the reasoning behind the decisions. On the AP exam, students will need to apply this information to a real-world scenario in comparison to another case. Any non-required Supreme Court case that appears on AP exams will be accompanied by a summary containing all the information necessary to complete the non-required cases to required SCOTUS cases. But remember, the big 14 are the required ones, which I also provided a video on. You're going to want to be able to identify a similarity or difference between the non-required Supreme Court case with the specified Supreme Court case required in the course, describe the facts and issues holding reasoning, decision, or majority opinion of the required Supreme Court case specified in the question, explain a similarity or difference in the facts, issues, holdings, reasonings, or decisions of the 2 Supreme Court cases, and explain how those holding, reasonings, and decision in the required, non-required Supreme Court case demonstrates a political principle, institution, process, policy, or behavior. And the last free response question is the argument essay. For those of you familiar with DBQs, it's very similar to a DBQ where you're going to need a claim, provide the reasoning and the evidence. But for the purposes of, once again, the AP US SCOPO exam, you want to be able to articulate a defense claim or thesis that responds to the question and establishes a line of reasoning, provide evidence from one of the foundational documents listed in the question to support the claim, provide evidence from a second foundational document or from knowledge of course concepts to support the claim, using reasoning to explain why the evidence supports the claim, respond to an opposing or alternate perspective using rebuttal or refutation. Once again, this is the second section of the AP US SCOPO exam. The first portion was a multiple choice. This is a free response where 50% of the total score. Once again, this will be completed digitally.